Hey guys, tonight we're cranking back the clock and dropping you smack in the middle of one of the coldest, brightest, and most caffeinated eras ever. New Year's Eve in 1950s New York City. That's right, before smartphones, before avocado toast, back when Times Square was still powered mostly by neon, optimism, and cigarettes the size of small tree branches. We're talking about a time when everyone's idea of a group chat was leaning out their apartment window and yelling at passing strangers in Brooklyn accents. So before we start brushing confetti out of our hair and dodging suspiciously sticky subway seats, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. If you do, leave a comment with your city and your favorite midnight snack. Just don't tell me it's kale chips. Kale chips weren't even a glimmer in the eye of 1950s cuisine. Now, dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft city hum, and get comfortable. Bonus points if you can hear distant traffic. Or a neighbor's tap dancing upstairs. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it really felt like to ring in the new year under 1,000 flickering bulbs, elbow to elbow with 10,000 people who all ate dinner at 5:30 p.m.? Was Times Square as magical as it looked, or just a frigid, glitter-soaked mob scene waiting for someone to lose a shoe? Did anyone actually make it home on the subway before sunrise, or was half the city just sleeping on benches, pockets full of matchbooks and broken resolutions? Could you survive a night of lukewarm champagne, cardboard party hats, and the sort of optimism that comes only from not remembering what happened last year? And what would it be like to spend New Year's Eve in a city where every deli, diner, and dive bar is somehow both glamorous and faintly sticky? Congratulations! You've just woken up in Manhattan, December 31st, 1956. Your shoes are polished, your pocket is jingling with subway tokens, and you're wearing more hair product than a modern-day YouTuber. Let's see if you can make it to midnight. The morning light filters in through grimy tenement windows, illuminating a bedroom smaller than your cousin's walk-in closet. You're jolted awake by the sound of car horns, a distant saxophone, and your neighbor's radio, already blaring Perry Como. Welcome to New York, where even the sunrise has a hangover. The first sensation you register isn't serenity. It's the mysterious ache in your lower back, courtesy of a mattress that's seen more decades than you have. You grope blindly for your alarm clock, a hunk of chrome, and hope that buzzes like a wasp trapped in a soup can. Of course, you're up before it even rings. This is the 1950s. Sleeping in is a crime against productivity. And besides, you're not sure your landlord ever fixed the steam radiator that hisses like a surly snake at random intervals. You stretch, yawn, and nearly knock over a glass of flat seltzer water on the nightstand. Seltzer is everywhere, like linoleum or unchecked ambition. You take a sip and consider your options for the day. Option 1, go back to sleep and dream of Central Park in spring. Option 2, get up and face the morning like a proper New Yorker, decisive, determined, and only moderately cranky. You choose option 2, mostly because the neighbor upstairs has started practicing tap dance, and resisting the rhythm is futile. As you stagger to your feet, you notice your toes are already freezing. The radiator, you discover, is still only decorative, so you shuffle to the tiny bathroom, really a closet with aspirations, where the tiles are so cold your feet consider unionizing. The mirror greets you with the stark truth. Hair matted, eyes blurry, pillow crease etched across your cheek like a battle scar. Perfect. At least you look the part of someone living in a city that never sleeps. There's no time for a luxurious soak or one of those modern power showers you read about in Life magazine. You do what every sensible New Yorker does: splash water on your face, brush your teeth with gritty, mint-flavored determination, and hope your hair will cooperate with a comb and a silent prayer. Somewhere down the hallway, Mrs. Giannetti is frying onions for breakfast, sending up a culinary smokescreen that seeps through every crack in the wall. By now, Perry Como has been replaced by a weather report warning about possible snow, as if you didn't already feel it in your bones. Getting dressed is an exercise in both fashion and fortitude. You rummage through your modest closet. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and a tie with a pattern so loud it could be cited for disturbing the peace. Everything is pressed, at least by the standards of someone whose iron is older than television. You pull on your wool socks, mismatched, but it's fine, no one checks, and layer up, bracing for the morning chill that sneaks through brick and mortar as if it's paying rent. Breakfast isn't an event, it's survival. Maybe there's a half-stale bagel. Or maybe you just eat the last of the crackers, washed down with coffee as black and bitter as your feelings about the subway fare hike. You eye your reflection in the cracked window pane. A little older, a little tougher, ready to face another day in a city built on both dreams and disappointment. Before you head out, you take a final look at your room. Walls lined with yellowed newspaper clippings, a window with a view of fire escapes and hope, and that persistent feeling that you're living at the center of the universe, even if it smells faintly of radiator steam and last night's takeout. You square your shoulders, open the creaking door, and step out into the hallway. A river of neighbors, noise, and the endless, restless energy of New York. Because here, in the city that never sleeps, nobody really wakes up alone. There's always the music, the neighbors, the clatter of life just outside your door. And as you descend the stairwell, shoes polished, heart pounding, mind full of to-do lists, you know the greatest adventure of all is simply making it to lunchtime. Good luck. The city's already 3 steps ahead. You shuffle down to the local automat, where food comes out of little glass doors, and the only thing warmer than the coffee is the conversation. Here, breakfast is a lukewarm boiled egg, a stale Danish, and a front row seat to your neighbor's complaints about the price of nylons. The place hums with the kind of low-key chaos you can only find in New York. Metal chairs, scrape linoleum floors, winter coats, steam on crowded hooks, and the light above every table flickers just enough to make you question the health code. The automat is an institution, democracy in chrome and glass. There's no waiter to size up your tip, no maitre to judge your shoes, just a row of vending windows and a promise that, with the right change, anything behind the glass is yours. Anything except privacy. You drop a nickel in the slot and retrieve a plate of scrambled eggs, which are both colorless and mysterious. There's something deeply satisfying, almost magical, about the thunk and whir of the machines, like pulling a lever and being rewarded with sustenance, if not flavor. Coffee, dispensed from a brass spout with more drama than a Broadway matinee, lands in your cup with the force of a minor car accident. You take a sip and immediately regret it. If this coffee had a personality, it would be that of a grumpy dock worker. Strong, bracing, and unapologetically bitter. The regulars are already deep in their morning routines. At one table, an elderly man in a threadbare overcoat peels an orange with surgical precision while reading the racing results in the daily news. 2 women in matching headscarves gossip in rapid-fire Brooklynese about their sister-in-law's new boyfriend, the one with the suspiciously shiny shoes. A knot of deliverymen discuss last night's Yankees game with the seriousness of Supreme Court justices, punctuating their analysis with the occasional snort or bang of a sugar dispenser. The automat is where stories are swapped, rumors launched, and reputations quietly unraveled over a shared sugar bowl. Someone's always got a hot tip on a horse, a cousin in the sanitation department, or a neighbor who swears she saw Frank Sinatra on the E-train. The gossip flows faster than the coffee and is just as likely to keep you up at night. You listen, half interested, half eavesdropping by accident, as the woman behind you bemoans the rising price of nylons. They want 40 cents a pair. You know what I could do with 40 cents in 1947? Across the aisle, a tired mother tries to coax her son into finishing a bowl of oatmeal that's so lumpy it could be used for minor construction repairs. You take in the sights. Men in fedoras nodding politely, a teenager in a leather jacket fiddling with his jukebox nickels, the endless parade of commuters rushing in for a quick bite and a place to warm their hands. Somewhere, a baby howls, and a line of office girls adjust their lipstick using tiny, compact mirrors, glancing around to see who's watching. The automat is a stage, and every customer is both audience and actor, playing their part in the daily drama of life in New York. You finish your boiled egg, which tastes exactly how you'd expect something that's been behind glass since Tuesday to taste. The Danish is as stiff as a tax auditor, but the atmosphere is addictive. There's something reassuring about the automat's sameness, today, tomorrow, even next year. It's not about gourmet food. It's about knowing you can find a seat, a meal, and a sense of community, all for the price of a handful of coins. On your way out, you pass a man tapping his wristwatch, clearly late, and a woman clutching her purse like she's hiding the nuclear codes. You nod to the counter lady, who's seen it all and only raises an eyebrow when you forget your hat. Outside, the city roars back to life, taxis honking, newsboys shouting, the whole hungry machine of New York grinding toward another day. But for a few minutes, you were a part of something. A breakfast ritual, a neighborhood confessional, a chrome and glass reminder that sometimes, in the city that never sleeps, it's the simple, shared moments that matter most. Before the parties begin, you've got to brave the bustling crowds, frigid wind, and the terrifyingly perky department store Santas. Everyone's out buying noisemakers, plastic tiaras, and enough cigars to create a smoke cloud visible from Jersey. Your journey begins with the strategic layering of clothing, because winter in Manhattan isn't so much a season as it is an endurance test devised by an especially vindictive meteorologist. You wrap yourself in scarves, pull on gloves that were fashionable back in the Coolidge administration, and step into boots that have seen more slush puddles than a city snowplow. As you exit the apartment building, the wind hits you square in the face, and you question whether a New Year's party is worth the risk of losing feeling in your extremities. On Fifth Avenue, the city is in full holiday mode. Window displays shimmer with fake snow and mechanical reindeer. Every lamppost is draped in garland, and Bing Crosby croons out of speakers embedded somewhere in the architecture. The sidewalks are a battleground. You're instantly swept up in a current of shoppers, each with their own agenda, their own list, and zero patience. Elderly women wield purses like battering rams. Teenagers weave through the crowd with a speed that suggests Olympic training, and somewhere, a little kid is losing a mitten for the third time today. Inside the first department store, you're assaulted by a wall of heat, perfume, and holiday jingles on a 10-minute loop. Salespeople in bright red vests pop up like whack-a-moles, armed with clipboards and an almost threatening level of cheerfulness. "Can I help you find anything?" they chirp, as if finding anything in this sea of humanity is remotely possible. You smile weakly, clutch your list, and attempt to blend into a herd of shoppers stampeding toward the escalator. Upstairs, you find yourself in the seasonal aisle, a veritable jungle of party supplies. The shelves are picked over, leaving only the least desirable hats, paper crowns that disintegrate if you look at them wrong, kazoo packs that sound like sick geese, and a solitary pair of glitter glasses reading 1957 in numbers as big as your head. You grab what you can. This is not a time for style. This is a time for survival. Somewhere between the racks of cheap plastic tiaras and novelty bow ties, a department store Santa corners you with a wink and a ho ho ho. His beard is askew, and he smells faintly of mothballs and pipe tobacco. For a moment, you are trapped in a holiday fever dream. Santa ringing a bell, children screaming about toy trains, and a saleslady shouting about a half-off sale on sequined clutch purses. You manage a polite smile and inch your way toward freedom. Cigar shopping is an adventure unto itself. You elbow your way to the tobacco counter, where men in fedoras debate the merits of Cuban versus domestic like diplomats at a summit. You pick up a bundle that promises robust flavor, mild aftertaste, and realize you have no idea what that actually means. But you want to look the part at the party. You add it to your growing pile of festive nonsense. At the register, you wait in a line that wraps around the perfume counter twice. Ahead of you, a woman argues about a returned cheese platter. And behind you, a man hums Auld Lang Syne under his breath while shaking a snow globe like it owes him money. The cashier rings up your loot with a practiced efficiency, barely glancing at your choice of sparklers, party horns, and the world's most aggressively shiny sash. Finally, you emerge onto the sidewalk, arms full, hair static charged, eyes glazed from exposure to too many twinkling lights and polyester. You take a deep breath of exhaust, roasting chestnuts, and the unmistakable scent of anticipation. Because as mad as this city seems, as impossible as shopping feels, you know this chaos is part of the magic. Fifth Avenue in December isn't just a place to buy party favors, it's a rite of passage, a test of willpower, and proof that you, too, can survive New York at its most festive. You stand in front of your closet, staring at 3 suits and a dress that still smells faintly of mothballs and disappointment. The 1950s look is polished desperation, starched collars, uncomfortable shoes, and a tie pattern loud enough to cause vertigo. There's no escaping the ritual. Tonight is New Year's Eve, and somewhere out there, New York is waiting for your grand entrance, or at least a passable attempt. You weigh your options with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. The blue suit, pressed by an iron you're pretty sure was banned by the Geneva Convention. The grey suit, one sleeve slightly shorter than the other thanks to a disastrous laundry experiment. And the brown one, which your aunt claims brings out your eyes but mostly brings out your unresolved childhood trauma. If you're feeling daring, there's always that formal black dress. The one with a zipper that's more theoretical than functional, and a waistband with all the forgiveness of a loan shark. Your shoes. They're a minefield of blisters and broken promises. The black patent leathers are shiny, but just tight enough to slowly numb your toes after 5 minutes of walking. The brown wingtips have seen more action than most World War II documentaries, and still bear the faint scar of a night spent running for a cab in the rain. Your backup option, loafers, are so informal your mother would appear in a dream just to scold you. Women's shoes fare no better. High heels that double as torture devices, or ballet flats that shout, "I gave up." Pick your pain. You lay out your selections on the bed and stare at them, hoping for divine inspiration. Instead, you get a faint whiff of camphor and old dreams. The 1950s were all about presentation. Men's ties are so wide they could double as picnic blankets, with patterns, paisley, checkerboard, and something you suspect is Morse code, that scream, "Look at me!" Women's accessories are equally absurd. Pearls, brooches, gloves that must be white, and hats with feathers that threaten to impale the person next to you on the subway. Layer by layer, you armor yourself. Shirt first, starched to a stiffness that could deflect a minor sword blow. Cufflinks you only wear twice a year, threading through buttonholes like you're trying to solve a magic trick. Trousers with a crease so sharp you fear for your shins. If you're a woman, it's all about the girdle. An engineering feat of elastic and hope, cinching your waist with the loving embrace of a boa constrictor. Then comes the dress, zipper trembling under the pressure, the obligatory petticoat that gives you the silhouette of an ambitious cupcake, and a quick spritz of perfume with notes of gardenia and mild anxiety. You check yourself in the mirror. Hair slicked, every strand in place, thanks to an entire can of pomade or a bouffant that defies gravity, logic, and possibly the fire code. Lipstick applied so meticulously you could guide ships into harbor with your mouth. You step back, squint, and try to see yourself through the eyes of an imaginary, forgiving stranger. Do you look like you belong at a glamorous New Year's party? Or a very tense audition for a toothpaste commercial? You attempt a little flourish, maybe a twist at the waist or a dramatic tilt of your hat. The hat slides forward over your eyebrows. The tie is just a shade off center. But after the fourth attempt, you decide the world can handle a little asymmetry. You debate ditching the tie altogether, just for comfort's sake, but the voice of your grandmother materializes in your head, whispering dire warnings about letting standards slip. Finally, you settle on your outfit, a masterpiece of compromise and personal delusion. You grab your overcoat, pockets already full of tissues, mints, and the desperate hope that you won't spill anything down your front within 5 minutes of arrival. Before leaving, you take one last look in the mirror, bracing yourself. The truth is, nobody really feels perfect in their party clothes. That's not the point. The point is showing up, starch and all, and looking just presentable enough to fool everyone, including yourself, for one more night of sparkling possibility. You slick your hair back with an alarming quantity of pomade, hoping to look like Marlon Brando but achieving more of a nervous insurance salesman vibe. The bathroom mirror fogs with equal parts ambition and regret. There's something uniquely ceremonial about hair prep in the 1950s. The tube of pomade is your Excalibur, a symbol of all that is cool, rebellious, and mildly flammable. You pop the lid, scoop out a dollop big enough to waterproof a rowboat, and begin the sacred ritual. The smell is unmistakable, chemical, sharp, and nostalgic, like childhood, leather jackets, and the faint aroma of Dad's aftershave. If the FDA ever regulates this stuff, half of New York will go to work with natural hair for the first time in history. You spread the pomade between your palms, and it glistens under the bare bulb like motor oil on a mechanic's glove. You lean in, elbows on the sink, and start sculpting your hair with the dedication of an apprentice at the Metropolitan Museum. Each stroke tames a wayward curl. Each pat flattens a potential rebellion. The goal is cinematic. Marlon Brando, James Dean, or at least the better-dressed cousin from Brooklyn. What you achieve, unfortunately, is closer to school principal who's about to fire someone. Still, you persist. Because in the 1950s, your hair is not just hair. It's your armor, your billboard, your passport to cool. The battle rages. The more you try to achieve a smooth, sculpted look, the more your hair seems to develop sentience. A stubborn cowlick at the back stages an uprising. The sides refuse to surrender, flaring out like you're auditioning for the part of wind tunnel test subject number 3. In a last-ditch effort, you grab the fine-toothed comb, standard issue in every American household, and run it through with all the confidence of a man on a magazine cover. The comb snags. You try again, and this time the comb almost snaps, but your hair gleams back defiantly. At some point, every 1950s bathroom transforms into a small-scale disaster zone. There's pomade on the faucet, the doorknob, your shirt collar, and a mysterious streak across your cheek. The floor is a hazardous slip and slide of lost ambitions. Your reflection is caught between triumph and defeat. You want Hollywood cool, but you're getting over-caffeinated accountant at a high school reunion. Still, there's a brief, shining moment. Maybe it's the lighting, or maybe you're just blinking away hair gel fumes. When your hair looks good, it's shiny, sleek, and styled with the kind of precision that would make an architect jealous. You strike a pose. You practice your best James Dean pout, then realize you look more like you're reacting to a tax audit. Not exactly rebel material, but it'll do. This is a unisex struggle, by the way. Women in the 1950s wrangle with bobby pins and hairspray that doubles as riot control, setting lotion, curlers, and enough teasing to trigger static electricity warnings, all in pursuit of victory rolls, pin curls, and bouffants that dare gravity to do its worst. You hear your neighbor next door waging her own battle with a hairdryer the size of a jet engine, every 5 minutes pausing to check the curl under the paper wrap. You step back for one last look, careful not to move your head too quickly lest you throw off the precarious geometry of your creation. Is this what victory feels like? You grab your comb, slip it into your pocket for emergency touch-ups, and try not to touch your head for fear of leaving a handprint that will last until 1959. As you leave the bathroom, the air is thick with the scent of hair product and the knowledge that, tonight, you've done your best. Maybe the world will see Brando. Maybe they'll see mid-level bank manager in a crisis. But in the city that never sleeps, with the right pomade and enough confidence, you can step out the door and pretend, just for one New Year's night, that you're the star of your own black and white movie. Every journey begins with a stop at the corner deli, where pastrami is king and the cashier calls everyone buddy. You load up on snacks, cigarettes, and a bottle of ginger ale that claims to cure everything but existential dread. The deli is less of a store and more of an urban sanctuary, open from dawn until the last cabbie calls it a night. The bell over the door jingles as you step inside, greeted by a wave of warm, meaty air that could resurrect the dead, or at least clear your sinuses. The shelves are crammed with canned soup, pickle jars, and enough Wonder Bread to feed a battalion. Behind the counter, a lineup of cold cuts glistens under fluorescent lights. Piles of pastrami, stacks of salami, slabs of cheese that could anchor a small boat. There's a rhythm here. You nod at the usual crowd. Mr. Finkelstein, with his morning paper and ritual complaint about the mayor, Mrs. Rivera piling up sandwich rolls like she's expecting the neighborhood to show up unannounced, and the two delivery guys in matching uniforms, debating whether egg cream actually contains any egg, or cream, or joy. In the corner, the deli man works the slicer with surgical precision, carving paper-thin pastrami with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. You make your selections: a bag of potato chips, a pickle wrapped in wax paper, a chunk of cheddar, and, for good measure, a pair of those neon yellow hostess cupcakes that taste like nostalgia and questionable decisions. You linger in front of the glass case, considering a niche. You want to look like someone who makes bold culinary choices. But deep down, you're terrified of biting into anything you can't identify. The cashier waves you over. "Hey, buddy. What'll it be today?" You rattle off your list and add a pack of Lucky Strikes because it's the 1950s and the Surgeon General hasn't finished writing that memo yet. He raises an eyebrow, gestures at the row of ginger ales. "Got a new shipment. Claims to be good for what ails you." You add a bottle to your haul, convinced that, at the very least, it will settle your stomach after the party food. Or the party, or just the thought of your New Year's resolutions. The deli is a theater of the everyday. Strangers line up for sandwiches and small talk. Orders are shouted, jokes exchanged, gossip whispered over the cheese counter. A boy is sent to fetch a loaf of rye and comes back with a comic book and a grin. Two old friends share a laugh in the back, hunched over coffee that's been sitting on the burner since Truman was in office. You realize that this deli, with its cluttered shelves and buzzing neon sign, is the center of 1,000 intersecting lives. There are deli rules, of course. Never cut in line unless you're ready to face the collective wrath of every grandmother within a 5-block radius. Always tip the guy who runs the slicer. Don't ask too many questions about the house special. Never, under any circumstances, insult the matzo ball soup. The consequences are social, immediate, and eternal. You pay at the counter, coins exchanged with a knowing wink. The cashier slips an extra napkin into your bag. He knows you'll need it. He calls you pal or champ, and you feel, just for a moment, like you belong to a secret society founded on brisket and kindness. Stepping out into the cold, your bag warm in your hands, you realize this little errand is more than a pit stop. The neighborhood deli is a rite of passage, a checkpoint, a confessional, a living archive of local wisdom and calories. You walk back into the street armed with snacks, stories, and ginger ale for the road ahead. Because in New York, you never know where the night will take you, but you know it starts, and probably ends, at the deli on the corner, with a sandwich, a smile, and the faint hope that ginger ale really can fix a broken heart. The options are endless. Jazz club, hotel ballroom, cramped apartment, or just wandering the streets like a glamorous stray. You and your friends argue over venues, each with its own promise of live music, lukewarm punch, and someone crying in the bathroom at 12:15. It's the paradox of plenty. For a city bursting with opportunity, you'd think it would be easy to agree on plans. But somehow, assembling a group of New Yorkers for New Year's Eve is like herding particularly dramatic cats. Everyone has a cousin's tip, a co-worker's lead, or a friend's third-hand story about a party in a loft with a jazz band and the best eggnog in Manhattan. You try to organize, but every suggestion is met with the skepticism of someone who's spent too long navigating subway delays and restaurant wait lists. The first contender, the jazz club. There's always a jazz club. It's in a basement or behind a door you'd never notice unless you were invited by someone with suspiciously good taste in hats. Live music. Atmosphere, someone proclaims, as if you haven't already mentally factored in the smoky air, the long lines, and the faint chance you'll spend the night wedged between a trumpet player and a potted plant. Jazz clubs promise magic, saxophones, candlelight, and maybe a memory you'll cherish until at least mid-January. But they also promise a $10 cover, watered-down drinks, and a guaranteed existential crisis when the band plays Auld Lang Syne in a minor key. Next up, the hotel ballroom. For the price of a week's groceries, you can buy yourself a ticket to an elegant celebration in a grand hotel with chandeliers, a 7-piece band, and 1,000 other people in their finest mothball-scented formal wear. It sounds glamorous, until you remember that last year, the only thing grander than the ballroom was the line for the bathroom, and you spent the countdown wedged between a fussy doorman and a punch bowl, sweating under the glare of fluorescent lights. Still, the thought of waltzing into the new year with a glass of champagne and a view of the city skyline is tempting. If only the punch didn't taste like it was made with equal parts Sprite and regret. And then there's the apartment party. Your friend's place is small, the walls thin, and the radiators louder than most rock bands. But apartment parties have heart. You cram onto the sagging couch, try not to knock over the host's vintage lamp, really just old, and toast to the new year with the cheapest bubbly money can buy. The record player skips. Someone brings a tray of pigs in a blanket, and the evening oscillates between dance party and impromptu therapy session. The punch is spiked, the snacks suspiciously retro, and by midnight someone is weeping gently in the bathroom, while everyone else pretends not to notice. For the restless, there's the option of simply roaming the city. New York rewards wanderers. Times Square for chaos. Central Park for quiet. Every block holding the possibility of a pop-up celebration, a group of strangers singing on the corner, or a hot dog vendor with free advice. You can walk for hours, following the trail of distant music glowing windows, and the faint hope that the best party is always just around the next corner. Arguments swirl, alliances form and dissolve, and eventually someone throws up their hands. Let's just flip a coin. So you do, and whether you land in a club, a grand ballroom, a cramped apartment, or just the city itself, it almost doesn't matter. The real tradition is the indecision, the comedy of planning, and the sense that wherever you end up, you're part of a city-wide celebration. A million stories unfolding at once. You check your watch. The night is young, the possibilities endless, and you're still debating whether to go out at all. Welcome to New Year's Eve in New York, where even your FOMO has FOMO. And sometimes the best plan is no plan at all. You're running late, as usual. There's a frantic hunt for your gloves, a futile attempt to iron your shirt, and the lingering fear that you'll get stuck next to your boss at midnight. The city outside sounds like it's already halfway to 1957. Time works differently on New Year's Eve. No matter how early you start, the hands on the clock always seem to sprint forward while you fumble with cufflinks and search for a sock's long-lost partner. Somewhere, in an alternate universe, there are people who show up to parties on time, shirts crisp and spirits high. Here in your apartment, you're just hoping you can get out the door without tripping over the cat or burning yourself with the iron. Side note, your ironing skills are legendary for leaving shirts with abstract origami patterns. You peer at your reflection, trying to smooth down a stubborn patch of hair that refuses to cooperate, no matter how much pomade or prayer you apply. The collar of your shirt flips up like it's auditioning for a musical. You consider, for the 5th time, whether you can just wear a sweater and call it artistic. Then you remember the one party where you tried that. And a woman in pearls asked if you'd just come from a poetry reading in a bus station. The 1950s are an era obsessed with sharpness, sharp suits, sharp lines, sharp-tongued aunties. Looking anything less than pressed is social sabotage. The apartment is a minefield of pre-party chaos. There's a hat on every available surface, none of which are the one you're actually looking for. You open the closet, hoping to find your good overcoat, but only discover a sea of scarves, a mystery shoe, not yours, and last year's resolutions gathering dust in a forgotten notebook. The radiator hisses judgmentally. You can hear the faint sound of fireworks testing in the distance, the city flexing its celebratory muscles long before the ball drops. Somewhere between tying your shoes and realizing you forgot to buy a hostess gift, the real anxiety kicks in. Will you remember everyone's names? Will anyone notice if you forget to take the price tag off your new tie? There's a 50-50 chance you'll spill something before the first hour is up. And looming above it all is the social minefield of New Year's Eve traditions. Who do you hug at midnight? Is there a secret code for escaping small talk with your boss? If you get cornered near the punch bowl by your neighbor who wants to discuss city council parking policies, will you ever be seen again? You step out into the hallway, arms loaded with a bag of snacks, your coat, and the world's least festive party hat. A neighbor shouts, "Happy New Year," from 3 doors down, waving a noisemaker like it's a distress signal. You return the greeting with the enthusiasm of someone being chased by time itself, already running calculations in your head for how late you can arrive without missing the good snacks, or worse, being pressed into kitchen duty. On the street, the energy is infectious. Cars honk, couples dash past arm in arm, and every corner deli seems to be having its own unofficial party. The city's pulse thrums with anticipation. You catch your reflection in a darkened shop window, a little frazzled, a little crooked, but unmistakably alive and in motion, part of the great urban migration toward parties unknown. You take a breath, square your shoulders, and remind yourself that everyone is probably just as nervous as you. You join the river of partygoers moving down the block, adrenaline kicking in. Pre-party nerves, it turns out, are a rite of passage. A tangled, jittery affirmation that you're about to step into something bigger than yourself. Tonight, every apartment, every club, every hotel lobby is its own constellation. And while you might fear the awkward silences or the unpredictable seating chart, you also know that sometimes the best nights begin with panic, a crooked collar, and the simple hope that by midnight you'll find yourself exactly where you're supposed to be. You squeeze onto the subway with 1,000 other partygoers, all decked out in polyester and false optimism. Someone's already lost a shoe, and the train smells like perfume, cigar smoke, and dreams that may or may not survive the ride. The doors hiss open, and you tumble into a world where elegance collides with chaos. Every seat is occupied by someone in their New Year's best. Women in shimmering dresses and red lipstick clutching clutches with white-knuckled desperation. Men in suits and ties so tight they look like they're preparing for a particularly judgmental court appearance. The air vibrates with nervous energy and cologne, applied as if it were a protective force field. You wedge yourself between a man sporting a tuxedo 3 sizes too large and a woman in a feathered headband who keeps reapplying lipstick every time the train hits a bump. Somewhere nearby, a group of teenagers belts out Auld Lang Syne in 3 different keys, trying and failing to harmonize above the rattle of the tracks. Everyone is pretending they've done this before. But there's a wild look in the eyes of your fellow passengers, the look of people who know that, on New Year's Eve, anything can happen, and probably will. You grasp a steel pole, grateful for something solid in a world full of shifting priorities and elbow jabs. Someone's tinsel boa gets tangled around your arm. On your right, a mother scolds her son to sit still, or you'll wrinkle your good pants. While on your left, a businessman clutches a paper bag from the liquor store, giving off the air of someone who intends to solve all his problems with a bottle of champagne and selective amnesia. There's something oddly democratic about the subway tonight. Fortune and failure, optimism and regret. Everyone is equal when pressed together like sardines under the flickering fluorescent lights. You make awkward eye contact with a stranger, both of you laughing at the absurdity of a man in a top hat trying to fit through the closing doors. A few brave souls attempt to keep their outfits pristine, but each jolt and sway of the train brings another avalanche of confetti, another accidental mascara smudge, another scuffed shoe. The conductor's voice warbles through the static. Next stop, Times Square. If you can get off, good luck. There's a collective shuffle as everyone checks their pockets for subway tokens, party favors, or a crumpled piece of paper with an address scribbled in the margin. The mood shifts from festive to competitive as the crowd senses their stop approaching, elbows sharpen, and someone loudly declares, "No one gets between me and a good party." It's hard to argue with that kind of determination. You glance around at your fellow passengers, a sea of hope and sequins and end-of-year bravado. It's the only time of year when the subway feels like a moving party, albeit one hosted by a city that never learned how to use its indoor voice. Someone strikes up a conversation about resolutions. Another person, halfway to tipsy, vows to start jogging, quit smoking, and learn the accordion, all before February. A collective chorus of "Sure you will" rises up, met with laughter that rolls down the car like a wave. As the train rattles into the station, everyone braces for impact. One last check of hair, ties, lipstick, and the desperate hope that their friends haven't already left without them. The doors swing open, and you're swept out onto the platform in a rush of perfume, perspiration, and pure possibility. It's a stampede of party shoes and paper hats, a parade of New Yorkers determined to squeeze every last drop of magic from the city before the clock strikes midnight. And as you rise up from the subway, blinking in the neon glow, you realize that no matter where the night takes you, you're already part of something. Something loud, chaotic, glamorous, and utterly unforgettable. Welcome to New Year's Eve in New York. Hang onto your hat. Arriving in Times Square, you're swallowed by a tidal wave of bodies, neon lights, and the promise that this year will be different. Spoiler, it probably won't be. But at least there's confetti in your teeth and no one's judging. You step out onto the street and are immediately swept into a current of humanity so dense you begin to question the laws of physics. You wonder if you'll ever see your toes again. The neon glow overhead bathes everyone in a light that is somehow both flattering and deeply unflattering. A color palette that could only be described as optimistic insomnia. Every billboard, every flashing sign, every rooftop is shouting for your attention. Times Square doesn't just sparkle, it attacks. The air is electric with anticipation. Or maybe it's just the static from thousands of party hats rubbing together. The din is relentless. Horns, shouts, music blasting from transistor radios, and a cacophony of resolutions being loudly proclaimed by people who definitely won't remember them tomorrow. Around you, strangers press in from every direction, a mosaic of hopeful faces, chilled cheeks, and one guy already asleep on a mailbox. There's a camaraderie born of shared discomfort, like everyone standing together in line for the world's most optimistic tax audit. Vendors weave through the crowd, hawking hot pretzels, paper horns, and knock-off Happy New Year tiaras. You buy a cup of coffee that tastes like it's been brewed since Roosevelt was in office. It does nothing for your warmth but gives you something to cradle while you awkwardly shuffle in place. At your feet, there's a crust of confetti, glitter, and the faint aroma of hot dogs, Times Square's own winter snow. The police presence is everywhere. Officers in heavy coats and stern faces doing their best to look intimidating while quietly accepting advice about where to find the best cannoli. Everyone is here. Tourists in fur-lined coats, locals in threadbare scarves, lovers holding hands, and loners just trying to survive the night without losing a glove or their dignity. There's always one guy with a homemade sign announcing that he's single, available, and has an apartment with its own bathroom. As if that isn't the highest New York flex imaginable. Everywhere you look, someone's shouting countdowns that are wildly premature, as if by sheer willpower they can nudge the city into next year a little faster. You glance up at the famous ball perched atop one Times Square, tiny and distant, yet the epicenter of the world for one fleeting night. People gaze upward with the same hope and reverence they give to shooting stars or department store sales. Suddenly, a gust of wind kicks up a blizzard of confetti, sending party hats spinning and filling your mouth with the unique taste of future dental work. You blink, and now your hair is a festive tangle of streamers, as if Times Square itself wanted to make sure you brought home a souvenir you'll never be able to vacuum out of your carpet. In the chaos, there are tiny moments of intimacy. A couple stealing a kiss. A parent hoisting a child onto their shoulders. A stranger offering you half a soggy pretzel because it's tradition. The city feels endless, alive, 100,000 heartbeats thumping in time to the rhythm of car horns and bad jazz from a nearby club. Someone belts out Auld Lang Syne, and the crowd joins in, off-key, out of sync, but entirely sincere. You start to feel it, the optimism, the thrill, the belief that maybe, just maybe, this year will be the one. Or if not, at least you've survived another lap around the sun, together with a sea of equally hopeful, equally lost souls. And as midnight inches closer, you're reminded of a simple truth. In Times Square, hope is not just for the new year. It's baked into the sidewalks, stitched into the neon, and flung from rooftops in little paper confetti bombs. Here, in the heart of the city that never sleeps, you can let go of your dignity and your expectations. Because in Times Square, there's only one rule. No matter what happens, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, buried in strangers, blinking in the neon, and ready to begin again. You detour into a midtown office party where the boss is already drunk, the cheese platter is sweating, and there's always one guy who tries to kiss everyone at midnight, regardless of HR policy. It's the law of New Year's in 1950s Manhattan. No matter how many invitations you collect, you will, inevitably, end up at someone's office party, probably your own, but possibly a friend's or a friend of a friend's, the boundaries blurring as the night grows late and inhibitions loosen. You step into the fluorescent-lit break room and immediately regret it. The room smells like perfume, cheap cologne, and the collective fear of annual performance reviews. The linoleum floor is sticky, the streamers droop sadly from the ceiling, and there's a clock on the wall that seems to be ticking backward. Your boss, always impeccably stiff at 9 a.m., is now the proud owner of a paper hat and a martini glass, regaling an unimpressed intern with tales of his glory days at Harvard. His tie is loosened, shirt untucked, and he's in that sweet spot between generous with bonuses and liable to burst into tears. You eye the cheese platter with suspicion. It's developed a fine sheen from hours spent under harsh lighting and several employees poking at it with questionable toothpicks. There's a plate of crackers so stale you could use them as coasters. And the punch bowl, slouches in the corner, filled with a neon concoction that is both radioactive and irresistible. There's music playing on a battered record player in the corner, cycling between Bing Crosby, cha-cha instrumentals, and whatever records the secretary brought from home. Everyone claps awkwardly to the beat, half-heartedly attempting to dance in a space clearly meant for coffee breaks, not conga lines. The accountants try to organize a game of charades. It goes off the rails when someone tries to act out auditor and everyone simply starts hiding their drinks. Across the room, the sales team has commandeered a stack of napkins and is constructing the world's least stable pyramid, while the office manager distributes plastic noisemakers with the solemnity of a priest handing out communion wafers. You accept yours politely, vowing not to use it unless it's absolutely necessary, like if you need to scare away the guy from shipping who's been staring at you since October. The party is an ecosystem unto itself. Old feuds are set aside. New alliances are formed over refilled glasses, and everyone is united in the ancient art of complaining about upper management. Janice from accounting reveals her secret opera ambitions between sips of punch, while Pete from HR spends the entire night reminding people, gently, that friendly is good. But let's keep it professional, folks. This advice is ignored by exactly one person, Dave, the aforementioned midnight kisser, whose optimism is matched only by his lack of boundaries. Midnight creeps closer. Someone tries to organize a group photo with the company Polaroid, but half the office is missing, having decamped to the nearest bar or, in the case of the IT department, locked themselves in the supply closet with a transistor radio and 3 bags of potato chips. The countdown starts anyway, 10, 9, 8, everyone clustering together, laughing, wincing, and scanning the room for the nearest exit or the safest pair of lips. The ball drops somewhere on TV in the background, and a cheer goes up that is part joy, part relief, and part primal scream. By now, the cheese has formed a union and gone on strike. The punch is mostly melted ice and mystery, and your boss has begun singing Auld Lang Syne with tears in his eyes and a hand on your shoulder. You promise yourself you'll leave soon. But the city outside feels too cold, too big, too real. In here, at least, the fluorescent lights are warm, the company is familiar, and the clock can't seem to find midnight. Eventually, you slip out, leaving behind a trail of confetti, unfinished resolutions, and a handful of co-workers you'll have to face in the harsh light of January. But for a few hours, the office wasn't just a place of ledgers and deadlines. It was the scene of unlikely joy, awkward dancing, and the kind of memories that might just get you through another year. Inside the Grand Hotel ballroom, you're greeted by a big band, swirling gowns, and a level of alcohol consumption that would make a modern wedding look like a juice cleanse. The punch is spiked, and so is the hair. The air is thick with perfume, aftershave, and the competitive spirit of 1,000 people vying for the perfect midnight memory. Chandeliers drip with crystals and ambition. The bandleader, slicked back and grinning, launches into a swing number that sends dancers whirling across the waxed floor. There's a dress code, but nobody's quite sure what it is anymore. Sequins, satin, tuxedos, and a handful of hats that look suspiciously like something a magician would pull a rabbit from. You are immediately swept into a sensory cyclone. The band's brass blares, champagne flows, and everyone's smile is dialed up to 11. Waiters dart through the crowd, balancing silver trays stacked with canapes and the occasional glass of something that tastes like optimism and regret. You make it to the punch bowl, an artifact so enormous it could double as a wading pool, only to discover it's more rum than fruit juice. You sip cautiously, then a little less cautiously. The world softens at the edges. There's an unofficial contest to see who can make the boldest entrance. A woman sweeps in with a dress so sparkly it looks like she mugged a disco ball. A pair of men in matching white tuxedos are arguing about who gets to ask the band for "In the Mood." You catch sight of your reflection in the gilt-edged mirrors and wonder if you look like a guest at a glamorous ball or a well-dressed imposter hoping not to be noticed by security. Small talk is the currency of the room, traded in quick, shiny exchanges. Where are you from? Who did your hair? Is that real silk, or did you just make it look expensive? Strangers become best friends for the night, clinking glasses and swapping resolutions they'll both forget by breakfast. The big band swells and the dance floor heaves, a beautiful, chaotic sea of swirling skirts and clumsy foxtrots. Couples twirl with a confidence that has nothing to do with ability and everything to do with sheer willpower and 2 glasses of punch. Somewhere in the middle of the revelry, there's drama. A minor spat over a stolen dance partner erupts near the palm tree. 2 old friends, reunited by fate and champagne, share a teary hug beside the ice sculpture, possibly of a swan, possibly of abstract longing. The MC shouts into the microphone, trying to get everyone lined up for the group photo, but only half the room cooperates. The other half is busy raiding the dessert table for another helping of the world's densest petit four. As midnight nears, the sense of anticipation mounts. People jostle for the best vantage point of the clock. A last wave of dancers crowd the floor for one more jitterbug before the countdown. The bandleader pulls out all the stops, the horns blare, and everyone raises their glass as the final seconds tick away. The moment stretches. 1,000 strangers all breathing in, hearts thumping in sync, hoping for that movie magic midnight kiss, or at least not to spill anything on their borrowed tux. The ball drops, somewhere in the city, in the ballroom, in everyone's imagination, and the room erupts. Confetti cannons fire, strangers embrace, and champagne toasts clink together in a jubilant, blurry chorus of Auld Lang Syne. You laugh, cheer, maybe even cry a little, swept up in the tide of hope and holiday excess. For a moment, you are part of the glamour, the chaos, and the wild optimism that only New Year's Eve in a grand hotel ballroom can deliver. And then, as quickly as it began, the moment passes. The band shifts to slow numbers. Shoes are abandoned under tables, and the punch bowl is reduced to a sea of ice and citrus peels. You find your coat, your friends, and your sense of wonder, knowing you'll remember the blur and brightness of this night long after the punch bowl's been cleared away. A friend's rent-controlled walk-up hosts the most crowded party in Manhattan. Everyone's crammed onto the couch, shouting over Dean Martin records and balancing glasses of cheap champagne on radiators that double as seat warmers. It's the classic New York gathering, a celebration squeezed into 400 square feet and powered by pure hope, friendship, and the willingness to tolerate each other's elbows. The apartment is a living tribute to urban efficiency. A coat mountain swallows the bed in the only bedroom. Shoes and dreams pile up by the front door. And the kitchen, barely big enough for one, now holds at least 6 people arguing about whether olives belong in potato salad. The wallpaper peels with the humidity of so many bodies and so little ventilation. Every available surface has been repurposed for the festivities. Radiators double as buffet tables, windowsills are drink shelves, and the bathtub is chilling bottles of champagne so off-brand the label just says bubbly. You squeeze into the living room, offered a folding chair that feels like a safety hazard and a plastic flute of sparkling wine that tastes vaguely metallic. There's a record spinning, Dean Martin crooning his way through the haze of cigarette smoke and laughter. Your host, equal parts harried and heroic, weaves through the crowd, distributing napkins and making apologies for the state of the bathroom. It's a ritual, apologizing for the bathroom. No one expects better, and if they do, they're in the wrong borough. There's always a wild mix of personalities. A couple from upstairs you've never met, invited because they once lent your host a whisk. A neighbor from 2 doors down who brings a tray of cookies, promptly devoured before you even have a chance to pretend you're watching your waistline. Your best friend, sitting on the windowsill, giving everyone nicknames and life advice, and a handful of friends, ready to toast to anything as long as the glass is full. The snacks are a study in mid-century resourcefulness. Bowls of peanuts, cheese cubes skewered with cocktail swords, toothpicked meatballs, and a mysterious aspic that everyone compliments and no one touches. The coffee table holds a tray of jello with fruits suspended in it like prehistoric bugs. Someone spills their drink, and it's mopped up with a copy of last Sunday's New York Times. No one bats an eye. The party never pauses. The conversations are as layered as the coats on the bed. There's the mandatory debate about subway fares, a heated discussion about who makes the best bagels, and predictions about the future. Will television ever really replace radio? A pair of hopefuls debate moving to California, while someone else vows to stay in New York forever, or at least until the next rent hike. Stories are told. Laughter ricochets off the narrow hallway, and at least one person accidentally calls their ex. It wouldn't be a party without it. The air is warm, dense with the scent of cheap champagne and Chanel No. 5. Music drifts in and out, sometimes replaced by off-key singing, and occasionally a dramatic reading of the year's worst headlines. Every so often, the building pipes groan, and everyone cheers. The radiator hisses, the lights flicker, and you realize this little apartment, cramped, battered, bursting at the seams, feels more like home than any grand ballroom ever could. As midnight approaches, the energy peaks. People gather by the clock, on the wall, on the stove, or someone's wrist, counting down, glasses raised and hearts pounding. The toast is chaotic and heartfelt, a mess of laughter and clinking plastic. When the ball drops, you're sandwiched between friends old and new, all of you cheering for the year ahead and the hope that you'll be here again next time, just as squeezed, just as joyful. This is the magic of the apartment party. It's imperfect, improvised, and utterly unforgettable. In a city built on big dreams and tiny spaces, tonight you've found exactly enough room to celebrate. You slip out onto the fire escape, joining half the city's population for a smoke and a moment of existential reflection. Down below, taxi horns and laughter float up like the world's strangest lullaby. The air is cold, sharp enough to wake you from the champagne haze and clear the last of the party room cigarette smoke from your lungs. The fire escape's iron railings bite through your suit pants or snag your skirt, depending on your luck, But you don't care. You're out here for the ritual, not the comfort. Out here, time slows. The heat and noise of the party dissolve into the background, replaced by the hush of a city holding its breath between years. You lean against the railing and spark your cigarette, flame briefly illuminating your face. For a moment, the world is just you and the glow at the end of your filter. You exhale, watching the smoke curl upward and vanish into the icy New York night. The city is alive below, headlights swerving, horns bleating, a chorus of voices shouting and laughing, sometimes in English, sometimes not. Somewhere in the distance, a police siren wails, but even that seems oddly celebratory tonight. The fire escape is its own ecosystem, a borderland between private chaos and public noise. The place where people go to collect their thoughts, gossip in hushed tones, or simply escape the crush of humanity inside. You're rarely alone for long. The window creaks open, and someone else climbs out, a friend, a stranger, maybe the party host balancing a glass and a half-peeled orange. There's a gentle camaraderie here, as you both share the chill and the view, not bothering with introductions. Names aren't necessary on a fire escape at midnight. You're both just souls needing a breath. You glance up and down the street and realize every fire escape is occupied. Little clusters of shadowy figures perched on the rusted steps, shoulders hunched against the wind, sharing cigarettes, laughter, and confidences too small or too big for the main room. Someone across the alley raises their glass in a silent toast, and you raise yours in reply. For a fleeting second, it feels like all of New York is suspended on these fragile metal ladders, holding up the hopes and worries of the city one floor at a time. You overhear snippets of other people's lives. The couple above you bicker affectionately about what song should have played at midnight. Someone below practices a few lines of French, perhaps for a resolution, perhaps for a dream trip that keeps being postponed. Someone else sings, off-key and heartfelt, their voice rising through the night as a challenge to loneliness. There's something honest about the fire escape. No one is performing here, not even for themselves. It's an excellent vantage point for existential questions. Will next year be better? Will you finally ask for that promotion, make that move, write that novel, or just keep coming out here, year after year, to watch the city from this same spot? You wonder if you're the only one feeling the weight of the year ahead, or the relief of having simply survived the last one. The cigarette burns low in your hand, and you flick the ashes over the edge, where they join the detritus of 10,000 other midnight musings. Inside, you hear the muffled countdown. 10, 9, 8. The city seems to vibrate with anticipation. A stranger steps out, asking for a light, and you oblige, sharing a brief look of understanding. Out here, everyone is equal, party guests, passers-by, dreamers, and warriors, all waiting for midnight to sweep them forward into something new. And as the clock strikes 12, fireworks burst somewhere in the distance, their color briefly reflected in 100 apartment windows. You breathe deep, stub out your smoke, and rejoin the world inside, carrying the cool hush and quiet hope of the fire escape with you. Because in New York, sometimes the best part of the party is the moment you steal away for yourself, beneath a sky full of possibility and neon. For those in the know, there's a hidden club uptown where jazz legends play until sunrise. You find yourself swaying to the music, wrapped in a haze of trumpet solos, thick cigarette smoke, and the kind of magic that only happens when you're not looking for it. It starts with a whispered tip in the hallway, or a slip of paper pressed into your palm, an address scrawled in hurried pencil, the instructions vague. Ask for Eddie, someone says, and that's all you get. You grab your coat, pocket the last of your courage, and hail a cab north, as the city hums and sparkles behind you. The streets of Harlem are alive, shop windows dark but jazz leaking through the cracks in the brickwork. You find a plain door under a blinking light, knock twice, and hope you're in the right place. Inside, you descend a narrow staircase into another world. The club is low lit, the walls lined with velvet and memory. The stage no bigger than a closet but holding giants. Every table is crowded. Young couples in sharp suits, women in red lipstick and laughter. Old-timers with hands curled around glasses of gin. It smells of smoke and bourbon, and the particular perfume of anticipation. A server glides past, carrying drinks and stories, and you take a seat at a tiny table you share with a saxophone case and someone's feathered hat. On stage, a quartet is already deep into a midnight set. Trumpet, upright bass, drums, and piano. Each solo is a secret confession. Each note a promise. The music moves through you, soft and wild, a river pulling everyone along with it. You sway in your seat, heartbeat sinking to the drummer's brushwork, feeling the edge of the year slip away with every riff. There's no countdown here. Only time measured by the rise and fall of a trumpet. The hush before applause. The shouts for one more. Just one more. You spot faces you recognize. A singer from the radio, a city councilman with his tie off, a poet scribbling in the corner. But here, everyone is just another jazz lover, another night owl chasing the sunrise. Conversation is soft, punctuated by laughter and the clink of ice in a glass. A woman next to you leans in, eyes bright, and tells you this is her 5th New Year's in a row spent here. Never once the same, but always unforgettable. They say Harlem has its own midnight, she says, and it's always later than the rest of the city. The bandleader steps up, nods to the room, and the next set begins, faster now. The music rising and tumbling, a tapestry of improvisation and memory. Couples get up to dance, turning the narrow space between tables into a ballroom for a handful of songs. You join in, pulled by the music, your feet following rhythms older than the calendar. For a moment, you forget everything outside. The cold, the crowds, the weight of resolutions. Here, there's only now, and it's enough. The clock ticks toward dawn, but no one is watching. Musicians trade solos, the crowd shouts approval, and the world narrows to a stage, a melody, and the hush that follows a perfect note. Somewhere outside, fireworks explode, and you feel them more than see them. The floorboards humming in sympathy. Someone pours another round, someone else starts another story, and the band launches into a blues that aches and soars all at once. As the night ebbs, you realize you've lost count of how many songs have played, how many new friends you've made, how many times you've promised yourself you'll return. Because in this secret jazz club, the ordinary rules don't apply. Only the magic of music, the promise of dawn, and the sure knowledge that, once in a while, the city gives up its secrets to those who are willing to listen. You step out onto the sidewalk, the sky already paling, your ears ringing with trumpet calls, and your heart lighter than it's been in months. That's Harlem's gift, a night out of time, a memory that sings long after you've left. As the seconds tick down, you're pressed shoulder to shoulder with total strangers, all counting in unison, and pretending not to notice that someone just dropped a meatball on your shoe. The ball drops, the crowd roars, and you're swept into a citywide hug with 10,000 of your closest friends. This is New York's most famous ritual, a collective leap into the unknown. All night, you've been drifting through rooms and streets, gathering momentum, bumping into old friends and new acquaintances, each moment leading to this one electric second. As midnight approaches, the anticipation in the air thickens, as if the city itself is holding its breath, waiting for that glorious, ridiculous explosion of sound and hope. You find your place in the crowd, maybe Times Square, maybe a living room, maybe the middle of a subway platform, and suddenly personal space is less a right and more a fond memory. The final minutes are a study in absurdity and grace. Strangers pass around noisemakers, plastic hats, and questionable beverages. Someone tries to start a conga line, and half the crowd joins in, leaving a trail of spilled drinks and bad decisions. The air is a jumble of laughter, Auld Lang Syne sung at wildly different tempos, and the occasional squabble over who gets the last deviled egg. At the center of it all, you, clinging to a glass of champagne, and the conviction that, just for tonight, anything is possible. 10 minutes out, someone inevitably asks, "Is it midnight yet?" No one is quite sure. Wristwatches are consulted, radio announcers are shushed, and a volunteer is appointed to squint at the television set perched precariously on a windowsill. The ball is high, still waiting to descend, and the tension grows. Everyone counts wrong at least once. It doesn't matter. What matters is the togetherness of strangers leaning in to share a laugh. Old friends swapping resolutions. New couples making their first awkward attempt at a midnight kiss. At the 5-minute mark, things get philosophical. What if this is our year? Someone shouts. And for a second, everyone dares to believe it. Someone else, less optimistic but more honest, admits they'll be happy just to keep their shoes dry and their heart a little less bruised. There's a tenderness in the air, the kind that only arrives when people stand in the cold together, clutching each other's hope, like it might actually make a difference. Then, with a suddenness that feels scripted, the final countdown begins. 10, 9, 8 voices rise. Hands clutch party horns. A shower of confetti erupts as if on cue. The numbers get jumbled. Someone jumps the gun at 5. But it all blends into a single, unstoppable moment. Your ears ring, your heart pounds, and the world narrows to the faces around you, laughing, shouting, singing, alive. The ball drops, flashing bright above the crowd. Noise explodes. For a heartbeat, New York is one organism, pulsing with joy and the certainty that tonight, at least, you belong. There are hugs, high fives, accidental kisses, and the kind of dancing that would get you thrown out of most places any other night of the year. A stranger pulls you into a spontaneous embrace, both of you laughing at the sheer weirdness of it all, united in the knowledge that the city's magic is real, messy, unfiltered, and loud enough to wake the dead. The confetti sticks to your hair, the champagne overflows, and the band plays a song nobody quite remembers the lyrics to. It doesn't matter. The year has turned, the world has changed, and for a few perfect minutes, you're swept into a tide of celebration as wild and improbable as New York itself. And as you look around, at the glitter, the grins, the slightly trampled meatball at your feet, you realize that this is what makes the city eternal. The promise that no matter how cold, how crowded, how chaotic, the new year always arrives wrapped in laughter and the warmth of 1,000 hopeful hearts. Midnight strikes. Instinct, custom, and maybe desperation take over. You're lip-locked with someone whose name you'll never know, and for a moment, it's the most romantic thing that's ever happened between two people wearing paper hats. The tradition goes back generations, perhaps a holdover from some ancient superstition, or maybe just another excuse for New Yorkers to embrace the wonderful chaos of chance. It's said that a kiss at midnight brings good luck, sweeps away the old year's baggage, and ensures you won't spend the next 12 months haunted by regret or, worse, single at every wedding you attend. So you do what everyone does. You turn to the nearest available face and lean in, your courage bolstered by confetti, cheap champagne, and the great cosmic permission slip that is New Year's Eve. You don't remember who makes the first move. Maybe it's you, maybe it's them, maybe it's the collective will of a crowd determined to squeeze every drop of romance out of a city known for its skepticism. For a split second, the crowd vanishes. The lights, the noise, the stickiness of spilled punch on your shoes, all of it melts away. It's just you, your midnight companion, and the clumsy grace of two strangers deciding, together, that magic is possible if only for a heartbeat. Of course, this is New York, so the moment isn't exactly cinematic. Your paper hat slides down over your eyes. Their party horn pokes you in the ear. The person behind you drops their glass. And for a split second, you're both balancing on the edge of slapstick disaster. But none of that matters. The kiss is quick, unexpected, somehow sweet and oddly empowering. It's not about falling in love, it's about letting go, for one wild minute, of all the careful calculations that usually run your life. All around you, similar stories are unfolding. New lovers testing the waters, old friends sealing the year with a promise, perfect strangers sharing a laugh and a secret. The boundaries melt, accountants kiss jazz musicians, cabbies kiss tourists. The shyest wallflower finally steps into the spotlight and is rewarded with a kiss so sincere it could power the subway for a week. The city becomes a great, sprawling web of possibility, spun together by that most human need for connection, no matter how fleeting. You and your mystery partner part with a sheepish smile. "Happy New Year," you both murmur, the words soft, a little breathless, tinged with disbelief. You know nothing about them. Maybe they're a poet, a stockbroker, an out-of-toner who'll catch a train home in the morning and tell the story of the midnight kiss to anyone who'll listen. It doesn't matter. For the rest of the night, you'll trade knowing glances across the dance floor, share the joke that nobody else is in on, and savor the memory of a perfectly imperfect moment. Outside, the celebration thunders on. Someone starts singing, someone else starts crying, and a pair of old women exchange a high five that says, "We've still got it." You laugh, you dance, you remember what it's like to be surprised by joy, to be carried along by a tradition that's half joke, half longing, and entirely necessary. In a city of millions, you found one person to share the turning of the year, no strings attached, no promises required. Because that's the true genius of New York's New Year's kiss. It's not about forever, it's about right now, the fresh start, the leap of faith, the thrill of not knowing what happens next. Tomorrow, the world returns to its regular schedule. But tonight, in the blur of paper hats, noisemakers, and neon, you and your stranger are proof that sometimes the old traditions really do bring a little luck. Or at least a good story. Someone pops a bottle of the cheapest bubbly money can buy, and you discover that vintage is just French for burns your throat. You toast to the new year, the future, and the hope that this headache is temporary. In New York, no party is complete without the pop and fizz of champagne, even if the bottle has been chilling, red, sweating, on a radiator for the better part of the evening. It doesn't matter if it's actual champagne, California sparkling wine, or something with a label so generic it simply says bubbly. On New Year's, it's all the same. Tradition in a bottle, poured into mismatched glasses with the optimism of 1,000 fresh starts. You clink, you sip, and immediately question all your life choices. The first taste is a shock, a flood of sugar, followed by the sting of bubbles so aggressive they could strip wallpaper. You try to hide your reaction, forcing a smile that says, "I'm definitely not regretting this already." Around the room you spot a parade of identical faces, wincing, sputtering, and then, after a few seconds, bravely reaching for another swig. Maybe it's the atmosphere, maybe it's the peer pressure, but the champagne keeps flowing. You're in this together, an unspoken pact that no glass goes unfilled, no toast left unmade. Toasts, in fact, are a competitive sport tonight. Someone proposes, "To friendship." Another chimes in, "To forgetting last year." A third raises their glass and, in the spirit of honesty, declares, "To affordable rent." Each toast is met with a cheer and another round of clinking. Glasses raised high, foam spilling onto hands, floor, and the neighbor's shoes. You're not sure if the bubbles are making you lightheaded or if it's just the thrill of the moment. You glance around and realize champagne is the city's great equalizer. No matter your pedigree, everyone drinks from whatever vessel is available. Teacups, jelly jars, plastic flutes from last year's party. The rules of sophistication are suspended for the night. There's something charming about the absurdity. A woman in a ball gown sipping from a chipped mug. A man in suspenders toasting with a glass that once held pickles. New York turns recycling into revelry. By the third glass, the vintage has gone to your head. You're giggling at jokes that aren't funny, waxing philosophical about the year ahead, and contemplating whether you should finally take that tap dancing class you've been threatening to enroll in since 1952. The headache that's lurking just out of sight is a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, you're immortal, or at least as invincible as someone double-fisting budget Prosecco can be. Inevitably, the cork flies somewhere it shouldn't. It ricochets off the ceiling, bounces off the lampshade, and is only narrowly deflected from someone's eye by the strategic deployment of a noisemaker. A chorus of laughter follows, and, as if on cue, someone spills their drink and begins the frantic hunt for paper towels, another essential New Year's tradition. The stain will live forever in the carpet, a bubbly reminder that sometimes the best memories are the messiest ones. Midnight is long past, but the toasts keep coming. You salute old friends, absent friends, and future plans you know you'll never actually follow through on. You toast to love, to luck, to the city that keeps you awake and alive and occasionally flat broke. Even as the bubbles lose their fizz and your mouth feels like it's been lined with sandpaper, you keep sipping, keep celebrating, keep believing that maybe, just maybe, this year's champagne will taste better than last year's regrets. As the night winds down and the last drops are poured, you realize it's not about the taste, the price, or even the headache that's sure to arrive with the morning sun. It's about the ritual, the hope, the brief, bubbly belief that anything is possible. You lift your glass, toast to the madness, and drink to the promise of one more chance to get it right. That's the true flavor of New Year's Eve in New York. Bracing, bright, a little bittersweet, and absolutely unforgettable. After midnight, the city spills into the streets. You crunch through confetti, navigate puddles of mystery liquid, and dodge couples fighting about who lost the apartment keys. The cold bites harder, but everyone's still smiling. Sort of, this is the part of the night that feels half dream, half documentary. The city, so rigid and businesslike by day, has become a carnival of the absurd. Each block a new scene in a story only New York could write. You step off the curb and your shoes instantly fill with confetti, remnants of 1,000 paper storms launched into the air at midnight. Each step is accompanied by the faint squeak of crushed party hats and the musical tinkle of plastic beads underfoot. It's like walking through the aftermath of a parade organized by children, poets, and pyromaniacs. Your breath puffs in the cold, mingling with clouds of laughter and cigarette smoke that drift along the avenues. You glance up, confetti clings to fire escapes, drapes lampposts, and even dusts the hoods of the city's legendary yellow taxis, each one now looking like it's heading to a particularly festive demolition derby. The neon signs blink with renewed confidence, reflecting off the snow and turning every puddle into a Technicolor Rorschach test. Around you, the city is both familiar and entirely new. You pass a group of strangers arm in arm, belting out a version of Auld Lang Syne that would make their high school choir directors wince. Someone's playing a trumpet badly but enthusiastically, and you can't help but smile at the spectacle. There are clusters of revelers still wearing their paper hats with the confidence of royalty, sharing stories and cigarettes. promising to definitely keep in touch this time. The streets themselves become a temporary living room. Sidewalks crowded with people comparing resolutions, lost gloves, and phone numbers scrawled on the backs of matchbooks. Of course, it wouldn't be New Year's without a little drama. Couples stop mid-block to debate the location of the keys, the cab fare, or whose idea it was to wear heels. Two best friends trade shoes because yours are way cuter, but I can't feel my toes. A group of strangers shares a thermos of coffee, a peace offering to the chilly dawn. The night is full of unplanned alliances. You help a man search for his hat, last seen flying down Broadway, and he points you toward the nearest open diner, a sacred bit of New Year's street wisdom. The city's soundtrack is different now. Laughter echoing off brownstones, the far-off boom of one last firework, the rumble of the subway beneath your feet. You find yourself swept along with the current of people, moving without really knowing where you're headed. Maybe uptown, maybe just to the next warm patch of sidewalk. Nobody wants to go home, not yet. The night feels suspended, as if the world will hold its breath a little longer to keep this sense of celebration alive. Even the cold can't quite break the spell. You pull your coat tighter, scarf wrapped up to your nose. But there's warmth in the crowd, in the chorus of voices wishing Happy New Year to strangers and cabbies alike. For one night, New York is united in its shared exhaustion, its hopeful delirium, and the knowledge that, tomorrow, reality will return. But not yet. As you wander, you realize you're not just walking through confetti and puddles. You're moving through memories being made. The grit, the laughter, the odd moments of kindness from complete strangers, all of it weaves together into the fabric of another New Year's Eve survived. You pause on a street corner, confetti in your hair and a smile you didn't know you had, and look out over a city that, for one magical night, feels both infinite and impossibly close. You seek refuge in a fluorescent-lit diner, sipping weak coffee and eating pancakes that taste suspiciously like last year's. The regulars debate the merits of diet soda, while the waitress recites her resolution to finally quit this place. The diner is a beacon in the night, promising warmth, cheap food, and the comforting illusion that time has paused somewhere between the tile floor and the sticky menus. You slide into a cracked vinyl booth, grateful for the heat, and survey the crowd. It's a parade of the city's finest survivors. Partygoers still dressed for the ball, teenagers giddy with freedom, weary parents lured in by the promise of bottomless coffee, and a few quiet minutes before dawn, the coffee arrives, dark and lifeless, but somehow exactly what you need. The mug is chipped, the cream comes in tiny plastic pods, and the sugar packets are sticky with nostalgia. You stir your coffee, watching the regulars at the counter. There's Sal, who has been here so long he has his own fork, and Edna, the unofficial mayor of the midnight shift, holding court over a slice of lemon meringue pie and dispensing wisdom with the authority of someone who has seen at least 40 New Years come and go. Your pancakes arrive, steaming and stacked, rubbery around the edges, syrup pooling with the faint suggestion of maple. You eat them anyway. At 2 a.m., taste is less important than the act of eating. Proof that you made it through the night, that you're still standing, even if your dignity and your wardrobe have taken a few hits. The air smells of grease, fried onions, and a hint of regret. You wouldn't have it any other way. All around, the diner buzzes with the low hum of late-night confessions and post-midnight philosophy. At one booth, two best friends make solemn vows to quit smoking, again, to go to the gym, for real this time, and to learn Italian, even if they can't pronounce espresso. The group of teens in the corner argue over whose mixtape is superior and share fries with the desperate camaraderie of soldiers in the trenches. Over by the window, a couple studies their check as if decoding an ancient manuscript. calculating what they can afford and whether the tip will cover their guilt for hogging the booth for 3 hours. The staff is in rare form. The line cook flips eggs with the energy of a man who's never slept, while the waitress, name tag reading Gina, navigates the floor like a battle-hardened general. She pours refills with a practiced flick, rolling her eyes at every new round of resolutions. "Every year I say I'll quit," she announces, "and every year I end up right back here on January 2nd. Guess it's fate." Or rent. You and the others murmur in agreement, because the only thing more universal than a resolution is failing to keep it. The diner's soundtrack is the clatter of plates, the hiss of the griddle, and the jukebox in the corner playing a mix of doo-wop, jazz, and whatever singles the regulars have paid to hear for the millionth time. The neon sign outside hums faintly, casting everyone in a pinkish glow that hides wrinkles, stains, and secrets. You finish your pancakes, chase the last bite with a sip of lukewarm coffee, and glance at the clock. The sun isn't up yet, but the city is starting to stir. Outside, the world is still quiet, the chaos of midnight replaced by the soft shuffle of tired shoes and hopeful hearts. Someone passes you a pen, and you scrawl your resolution on a napkin, adding it to the pile under the sugar shaker. Anonymous, hopeful, a small wish folded into the fabric of the city. And as you step back into the early morning air, full of bad coffee and better intentions, you realize that in New York, the diner is more than a pit stop. It's a chapel of second chances, a place to rest, regroup, and remember that every year, every single one, begins with a cup of coffee, a plate of pancakes, and the stubborn hope that this time, maybe, you'll get it right. You stand on a freezing curb, arm raised, doing your best impression of a human semaphore. Every cab is either full, driven by a man who's already broken his own resolutions, or mysteriously off duty. This is New York's true midnight marathon, the post-party cab hunt. The streets are alive with revelers in varying states of celebration and surrender, all bundled in wool and optimism, all determined to make it home before sunrise, or at least before their shoes finally give out. The wind cuts through your coat, your feet have forgotten what warmth is, and your only company is a mix of strangers, all waving, whistling, and offering silent prayers to the taxi gods. You watch as a cab with its light on barrels towards you. For a split second, hope flares. You wave with the intensity of a person lost at sea, but the cab screeches to a halt half a block away and is instantly claimed by a sprightly pair who appear to have mastered the art of urban teleportation. Their coats are brighter, their elbows sharper, and in the wild kingdom of New York taxi hailing, survival favors the bold. You exchange a look with the woman next to you, both of you acknowledging this ancient city truth. The cab will always go to the person who wants it just a little bit more. Another cab approaches, yellow and promising. You step forward, hand high, ready to plead your case. The cabbie rolls down his window just enough to shout, "Brooklyn? No Brooklyn tonight?" and peels away before you can even protest. It's a citywide inside joke. Sometimes it feels like Brooklyn doesn't actually exist after midnight, except as a punchline for cab drivers looking for a laugh. The wind howls, confetti swirls around your ankles, and you try to remember the last time you felt your toes. Around you, the curb fills with other hopefuls. Couples argue over the wisdom of walking home. Two men in tuxedos strategize. You stand there, I'll stand here, and whoever gets a cab first yells. A group of friends tries to pool their resources and their charms, practicing their best, "Please take us all to Queen's Faces." The only thing colder than the air is the glare from another partygoer who thinks you just stole their cab. The night has its moments of comedy. A woman in heels negotiates a truce with a rival hailer, both agreeing to split a cab uptown, even if one of them has to ride in the trunk. A group of college kids attempts to summon a taxi by singing doo-wop harmonies, hoping the power of song will succeed where frantic waving has failed. Someone offers the driver an extra $1, big spender, and is rewarded with a ride to the next block, where the cab promptly disappears with the meter still running. Finally, just as you resign yourself to a long, cold walk, a cab pulls up, its off-duty light flickering like a cruel joke. You approach, trying to look both friendly and desperate, and the driver sizes you up through the glass. "Where to?" he grunts. You name your destination, crossing every finger and toe. After a long pause, he waves you in. Sweet relief. You tumble into the back seat, warmth seeping into your bones, the city's lights blurring past the fogged-up windows. The driver launches into a monologue about his own resolutions. No more night shifts. No more coffee after midnight. No more karaoke with my cousin. You nod, half listening, watching as the city slips by, a patchwork of celebrations, sleeping storefronts, and bundled pedestrians still hoping for their own ride home. As you pull up to your building, you thank your driver with a tip and a silent blessing. You step onto the sidewalk, breath steaming in the air, and take one last look down the avenue, where hopeful New Yorkers still wave in the night, arms high, each one certain that the next cab will be theirs. In a city that never sleeps, sometimes getting home is the last, sweetest adventure of the year. Eventually, you find yourself at an afterparty in someone's aunt's apartment, where all the good snacks are gone, someone's asleep in the bathtub, and the only music left is a skipping record of Auld Lang Syne. This is the hidden coda of New Year's Eve, the secret show that only those most determined or most easily lost will ever attend. You arrive in a state of happy confusion, shoes pinching and bow tie askew, swept along by the momentum of a night that doesn't want to end. The apartment is dimly lit by a leftover string of Christmas lights and the gentle blue flicker of a television no one's watching. Shoes and coats are heaped in the hall like offerings to the gods of hospitality, and you step over at least 3 pairs of mysterious gloves on your way in. The mood here is different, quieter, stranger, wrapped in the kind of exhaustion that only comes from laughing too hard and shouting over big band music for hours. The good snacks have long since vanished, replaced by a tray of lonely celery sticks and a solitary cheese cube congealing bravely in the corner. Someone hands you a glass of something flat and ambiguously colored. Punch, they say. But the way they say it makes you think liquid mistake would be a better label. You sip anyway. What's one more risk? The crowd is a mix of the indefatigable and the utterly spent. A few die-hard party animals dancing like no one's watching. And, mercifully, nobody is. A couple huddled in the kitchen dissecting the events of the night in hushed voices. And at least one person whose sole purpose seems to be guarding the last donut on a chipped plate. The living room is an archaeological dig of the evening's revelry. Paper hats, empty glasses, forgotten shoes, a party horn that stopped working an hour ago but is still being tooted out of pure stubbornness. The bathroom is occupied, always occupied. Whoever made it in first is now asleep in the tub, wrapped in a towel, and dreaming of either Broadway stardom or just making it to bed. There's a line outside the door, but it's the patient kind of line, populated by people too tired to complain, too polite to knock, all bonded by the mutual understanding that, at some point, everyone becomes the one asleep in the tub. In the background, a battered record player attempts to summon cheer with Auld Lang Syne. But the record skips, turning the song into a surreal mantra. Should old acquaintance, old. You laugh. Because what else is there to do? Someone tries to fix it by nudging the needle, but the song just resumes its endless loop, now slightly more warped and entirely more fitting for the hour. Conversations drift into philosophical territory. Life, love, what next year might bring, whether the radiator's knocking means good luck or an impending flood. Someone attempts a heartfelt toast with what's left of the flat punch. To next year, may it be better than this mess. Glasses clink, a little half-hearted but honest, and the mood lightens. The night stretches, elastic and forgiving, giving you permission to drop all pretenses and just be. You wander into the kitchen for one last sweep for snacks, coming up empty except for a handful of pretzels and the remnants of a carrot tray. Someone offers you a blanket, another shares their cab home. No one seems in a rush to leave. There's a quiet camaraderie, a collective sigh that says, "We made it." By the time you gather your coat and shoes, the sun is beginning to flirt with the skyline, peeking through the blinds and casting everyone in a gentle, forgiving light. You slip out, careful not to wake the tub dweller, and close the door softly behind you. Out on the quiet street, you realize you don't remember everyone's names, or even how you ended up here. But you do remember the laughter, the kindness, the soft glow of a city refusing to sleep, because sometimes the best parts of New Year's are the hazy, tender moments no one will ever quite remember except you. You brave the subway once more, surrounded by equally exhausted party survivors. The train rocks gently, lulling you towards sleep as someone nearby snores softly into their trench coat. The subway after midnight is a different animal, a nocturnal beast padded with velvet exhaustion, stale air, and a kind of communal surrender. You descend the stairs into the underground, past discarded party hats and the occasional burst balloon, and are greeted by the echo of distant laughter mixed with the hum of fluorescent lights. The platform is full of New Yorkers in their post-celebration state. Ties undone, heels dangling from fingers, faces smeared with confetti, glitter, or both. A couple leans against a tiled pillar, exchanging a look that says, "We made it," while a group of teenagers retells the night's highlights for the fifth time, voices growing quieter as the adrenaline fades. The train arrives with a sigh of brakes and the familiar screech of metal on metal. Doors slide open, and you step into a car that smells of perfume, pizza, and the ghost of midnight toasts. You collapse onto the nearest bench, grateful for any surface not covered in tinsel or someone else's spilled drink. Around you, your fellow passengers form a silent congregation, heads tipped back, eyes fluttering closed, hands resting on shopping bags or party favors. The mood is not quite festive, not quite somber. You're united by survival, of winter, of crowds, of whatever potent concoction was passed around at the afterparty. There's an unspoken understanding among everyone. No need for small talk. No need to pretend the night isn't ending. You're all just waiting for the train to carry you the final stretch towards sleep. Someone across from you is fast asleep, trench coat pulled up to their chin, feet propped on a half-deflated balloon. A woman in pearls clutches a bouquet of wilted carnations, eyelids drooping with each swaying motion of the car. There are new friends made tonight, sitting side by side, heads leaning together, trading phone numbers that will either become life-changing connections or charming mysteries by next week. The rhythm of the train is hypnotic, wheels clacking over tracks, punctuated by the occasional announcement from a conductor who sounds as tired as the rest of you. You watch the stations blur past, glimpses of empty platforms and flickering ads. Each stop brings a small shuffle of bodies. A few depart, waving groggy goodbyes. Others stumble in, clutching greasy paper bags of diner fries or clutching each other for support. Everyone is softer now, stripped of the city's usual armor. There's no judgment here, only the collective desire to get home, slip off uncomfortable shoes, and start the year with a proper nap. Your own eyelids droop. The seat vibrates gently, lulling you into that liminal state between awake and asleep, where dreams blend with the half-remembered conversations of the night. You drift in and out, occasionally startled awake by a sudden jolt or the sound of distant laughter further down the car. For once, you don't mind the delay. There's nowhere urgent to be. Just the soft promise of your bed, waiting somewhere above ground. As your stop approaches, you rouse yourself. Gather your belongings, party hat, crumpled napkin with someone's phone number, the faint scent of champagne on your coat. You shuffle to the door with the others, and for a brief, silent moment, you all share a glance of mutual respect. Surviving New Year's Eve in New York is no small feat. The doors slide open, cold air rushing in, and you step onto your home platform, suddenly wide awake and shivering with the first taste of a brand new year. You climb the stairs, blinking in the pale glow of early morning, the city quiet for the first time in hours. And as you make your way home, you realize that the real magic wasn't in the countdown or the confetti, but in the exhausted, shared journey back to the world you left behind. Together. Finally home, you collapse onto a mattress that somehow feels both lumpy and luxurious. You make grand resolutions, then immediately forget half of them as you drift off, the distant sound of fireworks echoing through your dreams. You stare at the ceiling, tracing cracks you swear weren't there before, brain humming with the leftover static of the night's noise. The party shoes drop to the floor, one landing on the rug, the other skidding into a dark corner, never to be seen again until July. You wriggle out of party clothes with the grace of a weary marionette, each zipper and button a personal Everest. There's a brief, noble attempt to hang up your outfit. This year, you tell yourself, you'll be organized. 5 seconds later, the clothes are flung over a chair, awaiting your renewed sense of purpose sometime in mid-January. There's nothing quite like the silence that comes after New Year's Eve in New York. It's almost spiritual, the way the city hushes for a few hours, catching its breath before the next round. Through the window, you catch the faint glow of streetlights filtering through confetti stuck to the glass. The room is deliciously chilly. Your radiator has given up pretending to work, and you cocoon yourself in blankets like a cross between a hibernating bear and a nervous burrito. With your head nestled into a pillow that's seen its share of insomnia and dreams, you take stock. There's the vague ache in your legs from too much dancing, a crumpled party horn by your side, and the sharp, unmistakable crunch of stray glitter every time you shift. You close your eyes and start to recite your resolutions. This time, you're certain you'll stick to them. Less caffeine, more sleep. Fewer takeout dinners, more home-cooked meals. Be bold, be kind. Call your mother more often. Maybe even finally start that novel. Or was it painting? You can't remember. But the intention is there, which counts for something. The room spins softly with memories. Snippets of conversation, the sparkle of city lights, the taste of questionable champagne. You remember the laughter, the midnight kisses, the wild parade through the snow and confetti. Every moment flickers behind your eyelids, blurred at the edges but glowing at the center. Your heart is full of relief, hope, gratitude, and a little bit of heartburn from those mystery canapes. You drift, halfway between sleep and consciousness, caught in that rare pocket of contentment that only comes after you've survived the chaos and made it back to your own bed. The city outside still hums with a few stragglers, fireworks popping in the distance, sirens wailing in celebration or warning. It's hard to tell which. Somewhere, someone else is collapsing into their own bed, making resolutions of their own, promising that this year will be different. As you slip deeper into sleep, your thoughts grow softer, simpler. The worries of next week, next month, even tomorrow, fade beneath the heavy blanket. For tonight, you have everything you need: a safe place, tired limbs, dreams to keep you company, and the freedom to let the world wait. You tell yourself, just before the dark washes over you, that you'll remember this feeling in the morning, the optimism, the gentleness, the promise that the new year brings, whether you're ready or not. And maybe you will. Maybe you'll wake up with a newfound resolve, leaping from bed to greet the day with energy and determination. Or maybe, like most of us, you'll hit snooze a few times, shuffle to the kitchen, and vow to start again tomorrow. Either way, you survived another New Year's Eve in New York. You made it home, you kept some resolutions, at least until sleep claimed you, and you got to witness the quiet miracle of a city finally at rest. In this small moment, as the world grows quiet and the first day of the year glimmers with possibility, you are exactly where you need to be. Safe, still, and full of hope you'll get it right. Maybe not all at once, but in the quiet, comfortable steps you take, starting now. Morning arrives. You open one eye, discover glitter in places glitter shouldn't be, and realize your only real resolution is to find coffee. Outside, New York City is already bustling, ready to do it all again, just as soon as everyone finds their shoes. The sunlight feels like an interrogation lamp as it sneaks through the blinds, determined to expose the evidence of last night's revelry. You're cocooned in blankets, head throbbing gently with the familiar, not-so-gentle rhythm of regret. Glitter clings to your hair, your pillowcase, and somehow the inside of your ear, an unsolvable mystery and a souvenir from a night that's already going foggy at the edges. You inventory your body, all major parts accounted for, if a bit out of alignment. Somewhere beneath you, the mattress has developed a new, aggressive spring. Your party clothes are strewn across the room in a trail of exhaustion, jackets slung over a chair, socks pretending to be slippers, shoes in a place only Sherlock Holmes could deduce. A party hat stares at you from the windowsill. The words, "Happy New Year," slightly smudged, but still defiant. The air in your apartment is thick with the remains of last night's perfume, stale chips, and the peculiar aroma of old radiator steam. The kitchen is a battlefield. Champagne flutes with mysterious residue, a bowl of half-eaten dip, and that one solitary grape that has managed to roll into the far corner. There's a note you don't remember writing. "Call Mom. Don't forget. No more cheap bubbly," sitting next to a crumpled napkin with either a phone number or a very confident grocery list. You shuffle to the bathroom, greeted by the mirror's honest reflection. Pillow lines across your cheek, mascara, yours or someone else's, smudged in a perfect impression of modern art. And, yes, still more glitter. You brush your teeth as if scrubbing away the sins of an entire decade, then splash cold water on your face, determined to feel like a functioning adult by the time you hit the kitchen again. Outside your window, New York is already wide awake. Taxi horns, the rumble of delivery trucks, and the distant shout of a street vendor selling bagels remind you that the city never really rests. You spot a neighbor in the hallway, still wearing last night's shoes and carrying what looks like someone else's coat. You nod in mutual understanding. The details are hazy, but you both survived. You hunt down the coffee, anything that promises resurrection in a cup. The first sip is magic, a gentle nudge back to life. Resolutions start to bubble up again, a little softer and more forgiving this time. Maybe you won't run a marathon this year. Maybe you'll just drink more water. Call friends. Take things one slow, hopeful step at a time. You jot a few notes on a clean page, optimism surviving against all odds. As you wake up, you piece together fragments of the night before. The laughter, the music, the spontaneous conga line in someone's kitchen, the heartfelt promises made to strangers who are now just faces in a haze. The memories are imperfect, but they sparkle with warmth. You survived another New Year's Eve, and if the hangover is the price of admission, so be it. You open your window and breathe in the cold city air. Crisp, honest, bracing. You watch as people below dodge remnants of confetti, scanning the sidewalks for their lost gloves and dignity. The city stretches and yawns, ready for another lap around the calendar. With a second cup of coffee in hand, you settle into the day, grateful for the mess, the ache, and the quiet hope that comes with a new year. You might not have all the answers or even remember all your resolutions, but you're here, awake, and, eventually, dressed. New York is calling, and so is the rest of your life. As you tie your shoes, eventually finding the missing one behind the couch, you promise yourself to hold on to this feeling for as long as you can, because this is what the new year really is. Not a grand transformation, but 1,000 little beginnings. A city bustling, a cup of coffee, a glimmer of hope, and a you, ready, even if a little worse for wear, to do it all again. Desperate to check in with loved ones or maybe just call for backup, you join a frantic line at the corner payphone. 10 people ahead of you, all shouting over the din, clutching dimes and life updates. You rehearse your message. Tell Mom I'm alive, and yes, I wore my scarf. The city's entire communication grid is a symphony of busy signals, muffled arguments, and someone trying to order a pizza from a rotary phone. There's a peculiar kind of camaraderie found only at the intersection of urgency and patience that is the payphone line at 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve in 1950s New York. You shuffle your feet in the slush, breath steaming in the crisp air, as you mentally compose your side of the conversation, mindful that each dime buys you only so many precious seconds before the line behind you becomes a chorus of frustrated sighs and passive-aggressive foot taps. Around you, the line is a microcosm of the city. A tipsy couple arguing about whether they need to call a cab or just keep walking. A teenager, hair greased into a perfect wave, nervously dialing home to report he'll be late again. A grandmother in fur, determined to call her sister and wish her a happy new year, though her sister lives 2 floors down. The cold bites at your fingers, but nobody's giving up their spot. New Yorkers have waited for less with more resolve. Inside the narrow glass booth, the current caller gestures dramatically, half talking to their sweetheart and half fending off the encroaching crowd with "just one more minute" pantomime. You catch fragments of urgent conversations. "No, I didn't lose my coat this year. Stop asking." And, "Can you hear me? The parade went right past us." Every few seconds, the bell inside the phone dings, a reminder of time and money slipping away. Outside, you count your own dimes, reassuring yourself that you've got enough for at least a minute and a half of frantic shouting. Your turn creeps closer. The payphone itself is a relic, heavy, slightly sticky, and perpetually damp with condensation from too many anxious palms. The handset smells faintly of perfume, cigarettes, and the lives of 1,000 strangers. You cradle it to your ear, and, after the 4th try, finally get a dial tone. You punch in the numbers, praying the line won't be busy. On the other end, the phone rings and rings, the seconds ticking away like a metronome. When your call connects, relief floods your system. You launch into your message, racing against the clock. "Hi, yes, it's me. I'm fine. No, I'm not cold. I wore the scarf. Tell Dad I'm still looking for his lucky penny. No, I haven't met anyone. Yes, I ate dinner. I love you too." In the background, you hear a sibling's voice, a dog barking, the comforting chaos of home. You squeeze your eyes shut, smile, and let the warmth seep through the wires. Outside, the line gets restless. Someone shouts, "Let's go, I gotta call my cab." Another tries to sweet-talk the person ahead of them into giving up a turn. The crowd shuffles. Arguments break out. Friendships are forged over shared matches and cigarettes. Someone, in true New York fashion, attempts to order a pizza, only to discover they've dialed the public library instead. "Well, can you at least tell me if Ray's is still open?" As you hang up and step aside, you're greeted by a collective exhale from the waiting crowd, part annoyance, part relief. The next caller slides into the booth, already dialing. You linger for a moment, the cold returning to your fingertips, heart a little lighter. You've checked in, sent your love, and proved, at least for tonight, that you're still part of the endless, noisy, affectionate web that holds the city together. And as you move back into the night, your place in line already filled by someone else with a pocketful of dimes and urgent news, you're reminded that in New York, connection is always worth the wait, no matter how long the line or how cold the night. Tucked away from the madness, you squeeze into a Chinatown eatery with red lanterns, foggy windows, and 12 strangers sharing a round table. The waiters hustle steaming plates of chow mein and sweet and sour mystery, while a family at the next table erupts into laughter. It's the kind of warmth you can't find in Times Square. Soup for your soul and a fortune cookie that promises your year will be exciting. The city outside fades into the scent of ginger and soy sauce. It feels like you've stepped out of the wild, neon night and into a secret den of comfort, a place where time slows and the only countdown that matters is to the next dumpling. The din is a different kind of festive, chopsticks clinking, bowls passing from hand to hand, snippets of stories shared in a dozen languages. You're perched on a rickety stool, knees pressed against someone's aunt, and you don't mind in the slightest. In this tiny room, there's always room for one more, especially on New Year's. The foggy windows make the world outside feel like a distant dream. Red lanterns dangle overhead, casting a warm glow that softens the faces around you. Some flushed from the cold, others from the first taste of a fiery chili sauce. The table is round, as tradition dictates, so that luck will never get stuck in a corner. Lazy Susans spin, offering up crispy spring rolls, slippery noodles, and a platter of something you can't pronounce but know you'll remember for the rest of your life. The waiters are a study in efficiency, gliding through the chaos with trays balanced on one arm and not a drop spilled. Someone orders for the table, a mysterious process involving a rapid-fire exchange with the waiter, a little finger-pointing, a lot of trust. Minutes later, dish after dish arrives, each more fragrant than the last. Wonton soup steaming, sizzling beef arriving on a bed of onions that sizzle all the way to your soul. The chopsticks are slightly uneven, but the food is so good you barely notice your technique. Around the table, conversation blooms like tea in hot water. Stories are traded, old loves, new jobs, tales of the subway, and dreams for the year ahead. There's a couple from Queens who swear this is their lucky restaurant. A jazz musician waxing poetic about the best late-night dim sum. A student nervously practicing his Mandarin. You share plates and laughter, learning the names of your table mates as you reach for the same last dumpling. Strangers become friends, at least for one magical meal. At the next table, a multi-generational family makes a joyful racket, the children's laughter mingling with their grandparents' stories. The waiter brings a round of Tsingtao beers and a tray of tea so strong it could wake the dead. Someone proposes a toast. To luck, to love, to not burning your mouth on the soup this year. Glasses are raised, the toast is echoed, and just for a moment, everyone in the restaurant is united by the possibility of a better year. The meal ends, as it must, with fortune cookies, crisp, sweet, each one offering advice that's cryptic, oddly accurate, or hilariously generic. Yours reads, "Your year will be exciting." Someone else gets, "You will soon embark on a strange journey." Another laughs at, "Don't lend money to friends after midnight." You tuck the paper into your pocket, just in case. As you gather your coat and prepare to leave, the chill from outside tries to sneak back in, but the warmth of the restaurant lingers, settling in your chest. You pay your share, leave a tip, and thank your table mates, who are now temporary companions in the grand, swirling story of New York. You step back out onto the bustling street, feeling braver, fuller, and oddly lucky. The city is waiting, still wild and cold. But you carry with you the memory of a meal shared among strangers, the gentle clink of chopsticks, and the promise that, at least for tonight, you've found your place in the year to come. You duck into the hotel powder room, which is less glamorous retreat and more battlefield. The mirror's fogged, the line is biblical, and there's a flurry of hairspray, whispered gossip, and at least 3 women repairing their stockings with a dab of clear nail polish. Next door, the men's line is equally tragic, half the city's supply of hair tonic and bad jokes converging in a tiled echo chamber. The powder room is a universe unto itself, a microcosm of every party's secret life. You squeeze past a phalanx of ladies clutching beaded purses, each staking out a few precious inches of counter space, armed with compacts, lipstick tubes, and the determination of marathon runners. The air hangs thick with the mingled scents of rose perfume and aquanet, a fog so dense you could etch your initials in it. The hum of whispered confidences and polite complaints blends with the staccato click of heels on tile. The line is endless, snaking out the door, populated by women in sequined dresses and men's jackets borrowed in a fit of chivalry or temperature desperation. Someone's mother-in-law offers tissues. Someone else holds the door open for a friend re-emerging with victory curls freshly resprayed. There's a system, of course. Whoever needs to just check my eyeliner is fast-tracked. But anyone with more involved repairs must surrender their spot to the urgent. Solidarity is the only rule. "Here, use my bobby pin," says one. "I swear by this face powder, it'll hide anything," says another, passing over a compact as precious as a family heirloom. Meanwhile, the mirror is a gathering place for secrets. One woman tries to fix a mascara disaster, her elbow gently knocking into another's compact. "Don't worry, doll," her neighbor says. "It's so dark in there nobody'll notice." 3 friends huddle together, plotting an escape from an awkward dance partner. Laughter ricochets around the room as tales are swapped and plans revised. Someone swears this will be the year she finally gets a real raise, or at least a better brand of lipstick. Others nod, as if these promises are binding contracts signed in the steamy air. Just outside, the men are experiencing their own version of New Year's limbo. The line for the men's room spills into the hallway, an army of fidgeting, foot-shuffling would-be revelers. There's a chorus of jokes about "hurry up in there," and "do you think the punch was spiked or is that just me?" The smell of hair tonic lingers in the air, along with the unique aroma of nervous anticipation and the aftershave worn by everyone's uncle. Some check their ties in the reflection of a vending machine. Others try, futilely, to revive the shine in their shoes with a handkerchief. Inside, the men's room is a study in efficiency and resignation. Sinks are crowded, combs passed around like contraband, everyone trying to look sharp before returning to the dance floor. There are philosophical debates about whether to stay for another song or make a run for the exit before the coat check descends into anarchy. A few brave souls practice their New Year's resolutions in the mirror, reciting lines about eating better or calling Ma more often to the amusement of their neighbors. You emerge from the powder room victorious, hair restored, lipstick intact, smelling faintly of 5 different perfumes and one stranger's breath mint. You pass the men's line, now filled with resigned sighs and quiet hope. There's a sense of accomplishment, like you've just navigated the city's most challenging obstacle course and survived. Back in the ballroom, the music swells, the party resumes, and everyone rejoins the swirl of the night, made a little bolder, a little more united by the shared chaos of the restroom. In the end, the powder room isn't just a pit stop, it's the place where friendships are forged, stories are whispered, and for just a few minutes, everyone is in it together. Because the universe has a sense of humor, you spot your ex under a flickering street lamp, bundled in nostalgia and questionable life choices. There's a polite exchange of "Happy New Year," followed by an awkward dance around mutual friends and the hope that no one brings up the time you ruined Thanksgiving. You both agree the city is big enough for two, but somehow it always feels like you're sharing the same block. It's the unspoken rule of New York. The city's infinite size is a myth when it comes to timing and exes. You could go months without a sighting, and then, bam, there they are, right when you least expect it, and, naturally, when you're wearing a party hat at a cockeyed angle and holding a bag of leftover confetti, you freeze for a millisecond, mentally scrambling for dignity and small talk, while the night's festivities suddenly feel like they're under a spotlight. Your ex smiles, maybe a little too brightly, and you both do that big city ballet, half wave, half flinch, full body cringe. You exchange pleasantries, the air thick with the ghosts of shared taxis, borrowed records, and late-night phone calls. The words, "Happy New Year," hang between you, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. There's the obligatory comment about how you look great, which everyone knows is a peace offering, and you both do your best impression of two perfectly adjusted adults. The city buzzes in the background, car horns, distant laughter, a street musician playing Moon River for tips and lost souls. Your mutual friends, sensing the weirdness, make valiant attempts to keep the conversation moving. Someone mentions resolutions. Someone else jokes about switching careers or learning to cook. And you both nod a little too vigorously. You pray the conversation doesn't veer toward holidays or mutual acquaintances. The mere mention of Thanksgiving and the disastrous cranberry incident could send the whole delicate moment tumbling into a pit of regret. A gust of wind sends confetti swirling around your feet, and your ex's scarf flaps in the breeze. For a second, you remember why you liked them. The way they laughed at your worst jokes. The way they could hail a cab from 2 blocks away with a single whistle. You also remember why you broke up. Incompatible sleep schedules, conflicting opinions about pizza toppings, and that one fight about whether Seinfeld was overrated or just misunderstood. There's a gentle awkwardness as you both try to say everything and nothing all at once. Did you go to the party at the Waldorf? No. I ended up at the jazz club in Harlem, missed the subway, got lost, found a great slice of pie instead. Each answer is its own mini-adventure, filtered through nostalgia and just enough exaggeration to make it sound like you're living your best life. Or at least surviving. As you prepare to part ways, you both make the same joke about the city being small, as if repeating it will make it less true. Maybe we'll run into each other next year, you say, and your ex laughs. The sound softer than you remember. You wish them luck, they wish you the same, and for a moment, it feels almost cinematic, bittersweet, hopeful, and perfectly imperfect. You watch them walk away, their silhouette merging with the city's stream of night owls, partygoers, and insomniac dreamers. You breathe in the cold air and feel lighter. The awkwardness replaced by a strange relief. Maybe New York really is big enough for the both of you, even if fate likes to remind you of old chapters when you least expect it. As you rejoin your friends, someone hands you a coffee, someone else cracks a joke, and the rhythm of the city sweeps you back into the celebration. Running into an ex isn't the end of the world, just another story in the epic, unpredictable novel that is New Year's Eve in New York City. So, you made it. Barely. You survived a full New Year's Eve in 1950s, New York. The confetti storm, the lukewarm diner coffee, the questionable subway smells, and the wild optimism of 10,000 strangers, all shouting Happy New Year in accents thicker than a slice of deli rye. You danced, you lost a shoe, you kissed someone you might never see again, and spent half the night either waiting for a cab or waiting in a bathroom line that seemed to stretch into the next borough. Through all the noise and neon, the sticky punch and plastic hats, you experienced something real, the joy of a fresh start in a city that refuses to sleep, even if you're desperately trying to. Maybe your resolutions are already crumbling. Maybe you woke up with glitter in your hair and someone else's coat draped over your feet, but you survived. And that, in New York, is the only real tradition. Tonight, as you sink into your own bed, no subway tokens needed, no need to fight anyone for a pillow. Just take a quiet moment. Feel the peace that comes from not having to share your bathroom with a crowd. Sip your filtered water, enjoy your central heating, and maybe whisper a thank you to the folks who came before, the ones who braved the crowds, the chaos, the freezing winds, and the parade of resolutions lost and found. Because history is never really clean or quiet. It's confetti stuck in your socks, champagne stains on your collar, and 1,000 tiny stories that make up the world we live in now. If New York in the 50s teaches us anything, it's that people are stubborn, hopeful, occasionally ridiculous, and always looking for a reason to celebrate, even in the dead of winter. So close your eyes. Let the memories of neon laughter and distant horns fade away. Tomorrow, the city will wake up, dust off the glitter, and do it all again. For now, you've earned a little peace. Good night, and Happy New Year.